Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user SedPodge. Am I the a-hole for not agreeing with my husband to fund his brother's trip from our joint savings? I, 37 female, and my husband, 38 male, have been married for 9 years with 2 kids, 8-year-old and a 1-year-old. We are both working and my husband earns more than me. From the start of our marriage, we agreed to keep a joint bank account and personal bank accounts. In this way, we are able to share with the responsibilities of covering our family expenses and have our own money for personal needs. Now to the issue. Recently, my brother-in-law, 41 male, shared the news that his sister-in-law that lives overseas is getting married. Her immediate family in their country of origin has been invited to attend the wedding, and her only sister, my brother-in-law's wife, is expected to be there. The trip will require a visa and, of course, plane tickets. As we know, traveling is a bit expensive and my brother-in-law has to pay for his plane tickets and visa processing, as not all the expenses can be covered by his sister-in-law. For this, my brother-in-law is requesting, not borrowing, money from my husband to fund his travels. My husband was planning to give him the money, but he wanted to take it from our joint account and not his personal account. I firmly said no and told him that if he wants to help his brother, then he can get money from his personal account and give what he can afford. I also said that if his brother cannot afford the trip, then he shouldn't be joining in the first place. His wife can go with her family to attend the sister's wedding. So, my husband is now upset because I said no and even mentioned that it was a bit insensitive of me as my family side has never been in a situation to ask for extra money from us. I told him that I do help out with my family's side expenses in case of emergency, but I never touch our joint account in helping them. That money comes from my personal account. My brother-in-law is still pestering my husband for his contribution, but my husband is still silent on how much to give. So, am I the a-hole in this situation? Well, Opie, in my opinion, no, you're not the a-hole. You're actually the only sane person in this whole story. Your brother-in-law, first of all, as you say, shouldn't be going to a wedding if he can't afford the trip. I'm sorry, but no. He's a 41-year-old man who is not asking to borrow or anything like that. He is requesting money from his younger brother to pay for this trip. I mean, honestly, the audacity of that dude is beyond any catchphrase at this point. And your husband wanting to use your joint account to pay for his brother's trip, that's just ridiculous. If he wants to contribute to his brother's holiday, well then he should do that out of his own pocket, not out of both of yours. And this excuse of you not having to help your family, you know man, whatever. That money, you don't touch that. You've got your own savings, use those. And if you don't want to, then you don't give your brother any money. So no OP, not the a-hole. Just stay firm on the no and hopefully your husband understands what's going on and decides to not give him any money at all. And what is your judgment? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's check out the community comments. Solma Reddit user now says, it would seem like a reasonable thing for brother-in-law to borrow money, but a gift? That seems like a lot. Seems odd that your husband won't fund it out of his own account. One wonders if he can't, or is it so much that he doesn't want to? At any rate, not the a-hole. And OP responds, my brother-in-law has a history of borrowing money from my husband and not paying it back. My husband does not make an effort anymore to recoup the money, so he may say borrow, but in reality, he won't be paying any of it back. This is also my apprehension on using our joint account for this. He doesn't want to get it from his personal account as he bought a PC and gaming equipment. I told him if he still wants to help his brother, he can ask him to wait and give whatever amount he can from his next salary. Tatsruss1 says, not the a-hole. I see a lot of red flags here. The purpose of joint accounts is so each person can spend their own money how they want. If it's a joint expenditure, then there's negotiations involved. As this is his family and not yours, there's no reason why you should have to contribute anything at all. I'm guessing because of the separate nature of your accounts, he doesn't know how much you have and vice versa. There are a few scenarios that could be at play here, none of which are good. 1. He sucks at saving money and doesn't have it to give, but the pressure is killing him. 2. He has enough money, but doesn't want to decrease his savings to fund someone else's trip. And 3. He agreed to separate accounts to keep your hands off of his money, but believed he can manipulate you into spending money for his purposes. In all cases, he's looking out for himself. Stay strong, say no. If you break down now, you're inviting him to guilt trip you until you have no money left and he has all the money. And Opie responds, he doesn't want to get it from his personal account as he bought a PC gaming equipment. I told him if he still wants to help his brother, he can ask him to wait and give whatever amount he can from his next salary. If my brother-in-law cannot wait, then he needs to find other means to fund his travel. And Happier Being Petty says, not the a-hole. Honestly, the fact that a grown man is asking for money to go on a vacation to a wedding out of the country is absolutely embarrassing. Just like you said, if he can't afford to go, then he doesn't go. I highly doubt anybody cares if he's not there. They just want their sister there and she's going. Also, the fact that your husband wants to take it out of your joint account is also a problem, and it shows that he doesn't want to actually give him money to go on this trip. He's not giving it to him out of his personal money because he doesn't want to use his personal money in that way, which I don't blame him, but that doesn't mean he uses the joint account money. I don't know, seems to me that brother-in-law needs to grow up and learn how to manage his money better, especially because usually you have a lot of notice for a wedding. So I don't know why the case is here, but I would imagine he had more than enough time to save enough money. Alright, so the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole and that she should stand firm on saying no regarding the joint account money to fund for brother-in-law's trip. And also we learned the reason why OP's husband doesn't want to use his personal money is because he's got none after buying a computer. So now, let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. First off, thank you for the advice, feedback, and concerns. A lot of you were asking how much is the cost of the trip. We are from Asia and the wedding will be in the US. The cost of a plane ticket and travel expenses is quite high. Their plan is to stay for another 2 weeks after the wedding. All in all, estimated cost is around $2,500. My husband and I had a discussion on this matter. I was relieved when he admitted that it was wrong of him to think about using money from our joint account. He apologized for it and on how he reacted when I said no to the request. He assured me that he has not touched our joint account. I've checked our account and sure enough, there was no fund transfer recorded. My husband initially thought of our joint account as he didn't have enough money for his brother's request. I honestly don't know how much he has in his personal account. It is his money. He also doesn't know how much I have on my own account. He feels that he needs to provide as he earns more than the rest of his siblings. I told him that if it is an emergency, we can help. In this case, it's not an emergency or a priority. I told him that he shouldn't feel bad or burden himself about setting boundaries. We ended our discussion with him still open to pitching in but only around $200 and that he will get the money from his personal account. Then, in the evening, we had a dinner with his side of the family. The topic of the trip came up and my brother-in-law was excited and jokingly asked his other siblings soliciting money. It was a good thing my mother-in-law, their mom, my husband, and my other brother-in-law, their other brother, told him off and said that if he wants to go, then he needs to fund this trip himself. Brother-in-law awkwardly laughs it off and was talking about getting commission or bonuses at work. My other sister-in-law, married to the other brother, secretly informed me that brother-in-law also demanded her husband to give him money. I just hope and pray that he does find other ways instead of asking or soliciting from family members. Thanks again for all of your help. Well, OP, it's good to know that your husband apologized and acknowledged that what he was doing was way out of bounds, and also that your brother-in-law's whole family shut him down. So thanks so much for sharing, OP, and take care. And now, let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user ctreakle7062. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to lower my daughter's standard of living for her stepsister? Me and my wife divorced around 5 years ago when she came out as lesbian. We are still really good friends and we are both confused about what to do here. Around 2 years ago, she got married to Linda and her daughter Mia, 12 female. My daughter Anne is currently 17 years old. I have worked hard for the career and income I have, and I'm not ashamed to want Anne to enjoy it. As such, I give her a relatively large allowance. Anne grew up volunteering at our local shelter with me and her mom weekly, so she isn't spoiled at all. Anne and Mia were really close at first, but recently, Mia has been acting out about the lifestyle disparities between Anne and the rest of my ex-wife's household. Like how unfair it is that Anne gets to order food for delivery whenever she wants and how she has fancier electronics and clothes than what my ex and Linda can afford for her. Her biological father passed away. It has gotten to the point that it has started to affect her relationship with Anne. Last week was the last straw when she said, "I wish my dad was alive so I would have the same stuff Anne has." My ex-wife scheduled a meeting with me to talk about things. We pretty much seem to be on the same page since we both have no idea what to do. We are not comfortable with lowering Anne's allowance since we're worried it would make her resent Mia. We're also not comfortable with prohibiting her from using her allowance at her mother's place since it might alienate her from her mother's household and make her not want to be there. My understanding is that Anne offers to share things she buys, makeup, food, and clothes, with Mia sometimes, but not all the time. But I don't feel comfortable enforcing a sharing rule either, since my therapist advised me that it usually breeds resentment. However, Linda has been very upset with both me and my ex-wife since it's causing a lot of disturbance with Mia and a lot of big feelings and if my dad was alive kind of stuff, and it's genuinely harming her mental health. Linda acknowledges that it is an unfair ask, but she asked me if I could have a talk with Anne about maybe saving more of her allowance to not spend so much in front of Mia, for the sake of creating a healthier and more harmonious household. I told her I understand where she is coming from, but I don't feel comfortable controlling how my daughter spends money that I give her to spend as she pleases. Am I the a-hole? Opie, in my opinion, no, you're not the a-hole. I do understand how Linda is feeling, but this is like asking the water company to lower the pressure because your faucet is leaking. This is something that Linda needs to deal with. This is something that she needs to address with her daughter. I don't know if Mia is getting help for grief or she got help with grief regarding the loss of her dad. But still, you and your ex-wife are absolutely right to not want to constrain or ask Anne to measure or cap whatever it is she does with her money. So I think you need to talk to your ex-wife and tell her, you know what, you and I are on the same page. You now need to sit down with Linda and figure out what you guys are going to do regarding Mia. And that's as much of an involvement as you should have. And what do you guys think about OP's situation? What is your judgment? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Alpine Lad 1965 says, "Not the a-hole. Have Anne move in with you. Problem solved. Tell Linda to get her kid to therapy or to give Mia some of the social security money that I'm sure she receives from her father's passing. You are 100% correct about causing resentment from Anne if you or your ex try restricting her use of the money. And why does Linda think that your money should be shared with her daughter? She needs to explain to Mia that even if her father was alive, it doesn't mean that she would get the same money." And Opie responds, "We did think about this option, but one, having her just move in with me is basically running away from conflict rather than teaching compromise and conflict resolution. Would I have her move in with me whenever she had any sort of friction with anyone she was living with? And two, this is basically distancing her from a loving, amazing mother." Perpetually Exhausted says, "And if it's affecting the 12-year-old mental health and maybe she's regressing in her grieving for her dad, then she needs to be in therapy. The 17-year-old isn't responsible for her mental health and shouldn't be made to feel she is." And Opie responds, "Yeah, see, this is the hard part. I want to strike a balance between you're not responsible for the feelings of others while simultaneously communicating that you should still care about the feelings of those close to you, as kindness, mindfulness, and consideration are good qualities to have." And Sandpaper Fig says, not the a-hole. I don't think it's up to you to discuss this with Anne. What goes on your ex's house is not your concern. If her mother doesn't want her to spend it at her house, then it's up to her mother to ask that of her. I understand that Mia feels left out, but a 17-year-old would generally get better electronics and more money even if they had the same father. This should be a learning opportunity for both girls about what's age appropriate and about empathy. However, those lessons should come from their mothers as it's their household that is being affected. You sound like you're co-parenting really well, but it is not your responsibility. So the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole and that OP's ex-wife and Linda need to address this. So now let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. So after thinking about it for a while, I still don't think it's effective to enforce anything. Making Anne share everything with Mia or banning her from using her allowance at her mother's place will just create resentment towards Mia. Having her spend more time here is also alienating her from her mom. However, I am of the opinion that there is more to parenting than just enforcing rules, and encouraging good qualities, even without a consequence attached, is also important for older kids. I will not force Anne to do anything to pacify Mia or punish her for it, but I decided it is perfectly fine, and I dare say necessary, for me to have a heart-to-heart with her about the hurt she is unintentionally causing Mia, and the potential future ramifications of that. I am going to talk to her when she comes over tomorrow, and I'm going to bring up the following points. 1. The allowance I give her is hers to spend as she pleases. This has been and will remain her right. However, spending money on Uber Eats and clothes and other things in front of Mia is upsetting to her, given both the fact that she's a child who doesn't understand financial matters just yet and that she only has one parent to provide for her. 2. Mia might eventually grow up to understand, or she might not. Even if she does understand later, the upset caused in the meantime will be damaging to their relationship and possibly to her relationship with Linda. And 3, sometimes we do things we don't want to do and not necessarily fair or just in the traditional sense to protect relationships we value. It's sometimes better to be happy than right. Doing this does not necessarily mean you are a doormat, and it is an important part of living in a society. Granted, this is only okay if done sometimes, not over every single issue in a relationship, and ultimately, it is up to her and her alone to determine if that particular relationship is worth it. I feel like what I'm doing is a good balance between not encroaching on Anne's rights, but also encouraging kindness and consideration and letting her know about the potential consequences of what she's doing as an older adult. Thanks for the help. Well, OP, it sounds like a sensible approach to what Linda is requesting, but I still don't think that's the problem. My ignorant guess thinks that it's Mia having an issue with her grief, and Linda is the one that needs to address that. But regardless, I wish you guys the best in the future. Take care, OP, and thanks for sharing. And now let's move on to the final post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit entitled People, and it's by user Bride1234109. My neighbor thinks I should change my camera angles to look over his house too. This is ridiculous, ad to share. I recently bought and had outdoor cameras installed for my house after I saw them and all they can do at my aunt's house. The cameras are pointed around my house. A few days after getting them installed, my neighbor knocked on the door and asked about them. I told him that they're for extra security. He asked about the features and I sent him the ad from the company. He then asked me something I wasn't prepared for. He asked if I can change a few of my camera angles so that it can have his house in the view as well. I laughed thinking he was joking, but he told me he was serious. He said that we should do the neighborly thing and move the cameras over so that if anything happens at his house, he will have footage. He also asked for access as well and said that we can both have the added security. I told him no and suggested that he should purchase his own. He threw a fit and is now threatening to contact the HOA if I don't honor his request. Good luck, buddy. Wow, OP, this guy is just as ridiculous as the first OP's brother that wanted money for his trip. Good thing you told him that he can buy his own. Good luck with the HOA. Anyways, let's check out the update to see how this story ends. I reached out to my HOA yesterday via email about the situation. They responded a few hours after saying that they were made aware of the situation, but that no rule was broken. then I'm in my rights to have surveillance of my property. They also added a reminder to try to limit the view of other properties. Another neighbor of mine texted me that my neighbor was so upset about the outcome of his inquiry that he apparently has decided to pull out of our neighborhood watch. His reasoning being that he doesn't feel like neighbors are truly trying to look out for each other, so he will only watch his own back from now on. Poor thing. Well, Opie, I'm guessing that won't last for long. As the old adage says, he who leaves without being kicked out will return without an invitation. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.